Firstly, I'd like to thank Luisa and Jose Manuel for having us here. It's my first READMAGINE, and it's really wonderful to spend time out of the office really listening to leaders in our industry talking about innovation and disruption and how the industry is changing and needs to change as we go forward in order to succeed. I'd also like to thank Publish Her for partnering with READMAGINE for what is our first Publish Her event here in Spain, and hopefully the first of many more to come as well. Now, I know that we do have a room here full of fantastic women in publishing who are all doing amazing things. But today I'm joined on the stage by 3 women who inspire me every day. So we have Searsha Sadek, who is the co-founder and chief product officer of Shimmr AI. We have Gvantsa Jobava, who is a publisher from Georgia, but currently serving as the vice president of the International Publishers Association, and will take up the presidency on January the 1st of next year. And we have Arantza Larrauri, who is the managing director of Libranda, DeMarque. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. We're going to be discussing entrepreneurs today. There's many words in publishing that have the word her in it by chance. And I think that's probably reflected by the amount of women we have in publishing. But specifically, we're going to be discussing the role of women in innovation in publishing. And we've already heard today from publishers like Madeline who are challenging the traditional. And these 3 ladies are definitely doing that. So I'm going to ask each of them to kick off by talking about what innovation means to them, how they're embracing innovation, and whether they think that they're disrupting as well as innovating. So, Searsha, let's start with you.
Goodness, that's a big question. Am I disrupting? I guess Shimmr is disrupting the market. We do automated ads to sell books, for anyone that doesn't know. But I think innovation generally is a really personal thing, because I think everyone has their own risk appetite for innovation. You know, some people are creators of innovation and some people are consumers of innovation. And without both halves, innovation doesn't happen, because you need someone to make it and someone to use it, obviously. And so I think within yourself, you tend to identify somewhere along that spectrum. I've realized I'm more on the making it end. But I think within your own life where you use innovation is really important as well. There are some things that you might want to blow the doors off and like do something completely original, and it plays to your strengths and you're like, I can really contribute here, I can do an innovation. And there's other places where you're like, I don't have time to innovate there, I don't want to, or it's so boring. It's so boring, just take it away from me. Someone else innovate it and I'll buy the innovation. So I think, you know, where innovation sits in your life and where it sits with your identity is also really important. It turns out I'm much less risk averse than I thought I was before I started Shimmr. I thought that I was like medium. Turns out I really don't mind risk. I really like it. It's fun for me. But if you tried to get me to jump out of a plane, I will fight. Like, I will fight you. I will run back into the plane. I will not be leaving the plane via the air. So I think it depends where you want to innovate in your life, and I think it speaks a lot to who you are and what you value.
Gvantsa, what does innovation mean to you, and how do you think you're leading the way, if you like, with being innovative in our industry?
Hello to everyone. First of all, it's my first READMAGINE as well, so I'm very happy to be here and very much inspired what I have heard from previous speakers and sessions. That's great job what you're doing, and thanks for having me here. As for innovation, well, I never thought whether I am innovative or not. I think that you can't plan this when you are in the publishing industry to be an innovative publishing professional. What you can do just, first of all, you should have the passion of the work, what you are doing, because I guess it's impossible to be in the publishing industry without this. You should love this work, of course. You should be brave somehow, not not to be afraid of changes. And also, you know, when, for instance, you are from small market like mine from Georgia, you can't like compete with big markets, and you can't be so innovative to compete, for instance, and to surprise somehow the US market with your like innovative steps in the local industry. But I think that it's not about that, and it's all the markets, publishing markets around the world should understand that it's not about competing, but it's about making some changes in your industry, first of all. Absolutely. To be aimed on this, at what you can change and how useful you can be for your industry. And step by step, it might happen that you are interesting for the global publishing industry as well. So yeah, this is something about changes, I think, and something about thinking about development in the market, how you can achieve this.
Absolutely. Arantza.
Yeah, so to complement a little bit what Searsha and our colleague has said, I would say that for me, innovation is something that I think has been said in the previous roundtable or two before. It's in any given context trying to do something with some difference, no? Something that was done in a way, you want to change it somehow. But it can be a big thing or a little thing. You can innovate anywhere. Absolutely. I think we all have our context, our constraints, or realities, and in these small realities we have, we can do have this attitude. So for me, the way I always try to think about innovation, first I look at myself as an individual, because I think you have to work on yourself a lot to do things afterwards in the society. So my way to approach innovation is always, I like to think, I like to look at inside myself and see what really gives me passion or what really motivates me, because it's very difficult to be innovative in something you are not motivated at. No, you can think a lot of things, but if you are not motivated, you don't have passion for that topic, you cannot innovate. So that's the first thing. I try not to lie myself and to say I really want to do that or not. Is really that exciting me or not? And once I have that, I know what I like, and then I try to foster a lot my curiosity. I think I'm a very curious person. I like to have more knowledge of things. As I read, I want to read more. As I talk to people, I want to talk more. So this hunger of knowledge, I think, helps also to be innovative, I think.
Do you think ambition comes into it as well?
Yes, but it's not ambition in the sense. I mean, but I think Searsha said something interesting. It's the personality. The other day I was talking about innovation with someone, and they said you have to leave your comfort zone. But I think no, because if you are an innovative person, you are in a comfort zone of breaking things all the time. And I try to do that not only in a corporate level, but also in personal and especially in social projects, because I like to be involved in a lot of social projects. In these social projects, I try to break what has been done before.
Yeah.
I think the other place that innovation can come from, because, you know, to your point, innovation comes from passion. Innovation can also come from like a deep loathing or a deep hatred of what you're doing, like being extremely bored and trying not to do the thing that you're being told you have to do or that you have to do. I think that's a great place for innovation as well. You can be like, okay, I'm going to spend some time to build something to get rid of this problem because it's so annoying to me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And Gvantsa, do you think ambition comes into it? And I'm thinking, my line of thinking is there's been only 3 women leading the International Publishers Association before you take the helm in January. And I think to put yourself forward for that position shows strength, and it shows courage, and it shows that you're willing to put yourself in the spotlight to lead innovation as well. So do you think ambition and courage comes into it as well?
Well, ambition, I think it's not a bad word as well. It's important to have some kind of ambition, at least, because without that, it's not impossible. Because if you have ambition to achieve the change, then this is ambition. But it's not bad, it's good for development,
Absolutely.
it's good for the industry. That, yes, you are right, and what's important, we should say that IPA, International Publishers Association, will soon be 130 years old. And during 130 years, only 3 female presidents. It's unbelievable, but that's
the reality.
That's the reality, yeah. So it's not ambition to change, for instance, this statistic, but it's importance to do this because we live in this century, and also IPA should be the example for the publishing industry as well, because if we talk about the diversity, if we talk about the accessibility to our colleagues in many other countries, we somehow should give the example how we're doing this in our organization. So I think that this change is really, really very important, and on this way, women, we should be very supportive to each other. So, well, of course, if we want to change these statistics, we should be ambitious, but it does not come without like a background, what we have, a lot of work and professionalism. You need to learn, you need to develop yourself first of all.
And sticking with the theme of change, when we first started talking about this panel, we were talking about how change is hard. And we heard that again this morning from Madeline about how change is hard, it's difficult. So, Searsha, what have been the hard bits for you? What have been like the real darkest hours for you? And what have you found the hardest thing to do around changing things and being innovative?
I think it's really interesting because you kind of have a darkest hour every week, and then you have a lightest hour every week at this speed of change, because obviously we work with AI a lot, and so things change all the time, even when you're not changing anything. So change is kind of incessant, and you just start to get on board and experience it. It's just part of how it is. I think the real secret to it, I guess, is being able to be psychologically safe and be vulnerable. Because I think especially when you're making change at this pace, if you don't have people that you can depend on and you can speak to and you can say, hey, I am really scared right now because I'm doing something scary, and they turn around to you and go, okay, why? Let's talk about it. And having that safe space with the people that you work with, but even more a network of people to support you is important. And actually, we're doing entrepreneurs, and it's about women, but I think that's something that women do very well that men don't get to have. As much as women get to have it.
Do you think because that it's seen as a weakness, maybe?
I don't know whether it's seen as a weakness or not. I think it's just seen as feminine as a thing to do, is to talk to your friends about your problems. And I think actually, feminism is equality between the genders. It's about men having as much as women have, and women having as much as men have, and we're all good at different things. So I think one of the things that men should get from women is the ability to be vulnerable, which so many more men are now, which is incredible, but the permission to be like that. And I think when you talk about change and innovation, you need that support network. Men need it, women need it, and when you don't get it, that's when things start to go wrong. Your business can fail because people start to hide things, people start to cover themselves. That's male and female, and that's when bad behaviors come into it as well, because people are afraid. So I think vulnerability and support networks and having the ability within your company and within your relationships and your friendships to say, stuff's going wrong.
I'm struggling
can
right
someone
now.
help me? Is really, really critical to actually being successful and actually being able to get change made.
Yeah. And Arantza, in terms of change is hard, how do you feel that manifests itself in your business and being a leader of your business? How do you manage that change?
The change. Well, I think as Shash explained, that everything is changing all the time. I mean, or we are changing all the time. Everything that we do impacts us and it changes. And I particularly enjoy change. I will be very worried, bored without change. So change does not scare me. You asked Sasha before the darkest moments when you do things or innovative projects. I wouldn't say it's change. For me, at least, change is good. For me, the darkest moments, maybe you have faced the same, when you create a project, can be innovative, more or less innovative, but it has always been connected to disappointment. Maybe at some point, some people that have failed you, that people that you trusted a lot, that have been disloyal, let's say, been disloyal to you or to the project. And this has been always my darkest moments, when I have seen disloyalty from people I expected loyalty. But the good thing is that normally this has happened with people that were not selected by me. They were given to me, let's say. But it's very hard when it's someone that you have chosen in your team. It had happened to me in a very innovative association we built some years ago. And any of us could be the president of that association. We couldn't because of things we had to do in our careers. So we chose another one to be the president. And that president turned out to be destroy the philosophy of this. No, and this was so hard because you committed a mistake in the selection process. So for me, the darkest moments is when you lose these people you trust so much. And then things are sad, I think.
And do you agree with what Searsha was saying about the importance of having a support network to get you through those darkest hours?
Yes, for me, I
to
think
be vulnerable.
I think we all are vulnerable,
Yes.
and we have to. And it's good to be vulnerable sometimes. And for me, there are two things that are crucial for that. One is to have this network. I have my circle of people that I know I can ask for advice when I'm worried or. It's interesting because sometimes you know that these people can help you in some things, these other people can help you in other things. It's very strange to have someone that can help you in everything, but there is some people that do that too. And that's crucial, to be there and ask for advice, to be able to express your concerns. That's one thing for me that has saved me in a lot of moments. And another thing is to have not to put all the eggs in the same basket. So in my case, I try to have different, I try to feed different facets of my personality to make sure that if any of these fields is broken for whatever reason, I have other things that I can focus my attention and my life. And this equilibrium for me is very important too, to cultivate different facets of your life. No?
I think it's such an interesting point because I think change is scary for everybody, but you're willing to put up with that fear for the benefits of change. I don't think it's, living in an environment where everything is changing every day. It is scary. Of course it's scary, but it's just something that you're willing to do if you have the personality that kind of doesn't mind the chaos. I think you're right about the personalities thing. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Gvantsa, is change hard for you?
Well, of course, I think that it's hard everywhere and it's hard for me as well. Darkest hours. Well, I think that the darkest, I can't say darkest, but quite challenging for me was when I became the president of our local association. I can't say that there were big challenges about being female. That was not like this because we talked once, Emma, about that in Georgia the publishing industry is quite equal because we have like a lot of female leaders. Yeah, it's really, and we said that, once I said that it's a paradise of gender equality in Georgian publishing house, it's like this. But I had the serious problem of aging because I was quite young, like 27, I think. And yeah, it was darkest because for my country it was also a time of big changes because, we are coming from the Soviet past and then came the new generation with quite different ideas that doesn't want to accept this past and those propaganda and ideology, and so absolutely opposite. So I think that this time was quite challenging for me.
How did you overcome that? How did you overcome the perception that because you were young, you couldn't lead, you couldn't be innovative?
I don't know, it happened. It happened somehow because, well, it was publishers, my colleagues' decision as well, of course, and quite surprising somehow, but like step by step after the work. But the hardest moments also for me somehow was this cooperation with the state. Of the private sector and the state, because you are discovering these differences, the different goals, different ideas, and sometimes you see that, well, not everyone is so lucky to live in super democratic countries, and we as an IPA, of course, we have members from all around the world, and one of our roles is to help them working help their work with the state, and it's quite different in different parts of the world. And I don't go far away. We have a lot of challenges in our own country. And sometimes you see that you work for the development, you want to be innovative and you want to achieve this change, but then you see that there is state who wants to use this tools for control. So these differences make you quite disappointing.
Yeah, the environment you operate in means that you're stifled no matter how hard you try.
And to be honest, when I decided to become a publisher, when I chose this profession, I thought that I will be just publishing beautiful books and this will be my job. And then one day I realized that a lot of politics in our life.
The reality is very different.
Very different.
Yeah. And Searsha, you work in a tech business and you co-founded the tech business. I mean, and you're new to the publishing industry, your background's not in publishing. How do you perceive the current role of women in tech, in publishing?
I mean, it's really interesting. So my background is in psychology, and then I went into advertising for 10 years or so. I really enjoyed advertising, but I was spat on, I was screamed at, we won't go into all of it. There was a lot of different things that happened that tend to come from men, but actually also came from a lot of women who had been abused by the system and abused in kind. So it was an industry that was dying on its feet. It is an industry that's dying on its feet because, the commercial model isn't great. And so coming into publishing, to be honest, I entered a room full of women that were all talking, and I was like, wow, what's going on in here? There's so many women, and everyone's being so nice to each other. This is incredible. As with all industries, there are challenges, and I think the leadership of the industry is obviously something that's really important to discuss. But I think publishing is approaching it the right way. I think making sure that there's enough female talent at the bottom so that in time, female leadership grows in and comes in very authentically is the right approach, and it takes time to do that. So I found it really positive in terms of tech specifically. I've always, I then went into a tech company for 4 or 5 years. I've almost always been the only woman in the room. If it's not me, it's maybe 2 women. And so at Shimmr, what I really enjoy is that our leadership team is half women, half men. And so it's very equal. So in the company that we have now, I feel really positive about the gender split, and I've seen that in other tech companies within publishing as well. There is more women in there. I think, in general, if women in publishing want to come into publishing tech, there's so many opportunities and there's so many things that you can bring your expertise for. So I guess it's just making it known the types of available roles that there's going to be, because there's going to be a lot more tech companies in publishing coming, I'm sure.
True. And Arantza, you are in the logistics business, but in the digital business as well. So, really at the crossover between publishing, logistics, technology, digital. Yes. And what's the environment like for you as a female in this industry, particularly as a female leader in this industry?
Yeah, no, we have. I mean, in our case, we interact with companies. I think that, in fact, as Maria Jose was explaining, the book industry is an industry that has a lot of female presence in the companies, no? So we have this feeling of working with clients and with suppliers that have this equilibrium in their companies. But in our company, for instance, we have always believed in giving equality opportunities when you interview someone to get into your company. We have a very transparent process. It has turned out that now in Libranda, for instance, we have 75% women and 25 men, but the men has selected the woman in the process. So it has been very transparent, because I have always think, and I think that's something very deep in me, I think that diversity in the team is fundamental, but not only diversity of gender, of course, but everything, gender, age, any kind of orientation. So I mean, I enjoy having different diversity, and I'm very scared when I don't see diversity in a place. Very scared. I run when I don't see diversity. So I have always fostered that. I have always tried to make the company, the colleagues where I work from, happy being different in a company, respectful with the diversity, which is not sometimes bringing diversity as something natural in the process. And that's the way you have tried to approach that. So, and naturally, we are more women than men, but maybe in 2 years it's the opposite. Or, I mean, it doesn't matter as long as people are respectful, because one thing that is clear is that if you don't have diversity, and especially in a company like ours that belongs to a bigger company, DeMarque, if you don't have diversity, you cannot understand the world. It's impossible. Diversity of nationalities, diversity of life experience, profiles. I mean, I love when I see curriculums that doesn't have to do with anyone that we have in the company, because it's the only way to make sure that someone will bring some light to something you don't see.
Some fresh
These
eyes.
blind spots that you don't see, someone that has other experience can tell you, wait, you are not considering that. This is impossible if there's no diversity. It's impossible.
I think that's so important. I mean, within our company, we also have political diversity, which is a harder topic to sometimes talk about. And we've got national diversity and political, and it really has thrown up probably the most interesting debates that I've had at work based on those types of things. So it's really critical to think about.
Yeah, and basically the atmosphere, you have to create an atmosphere that people feel
That it's
safe in this. And this is with example. I think that the only way to inspire people is by example. If that's the only way.
To be a role model. Yeah, to have role models as well.
Yeah.
And that brings us nicely on to our next topic, which is around skills and what skills you require to be innovative in the publishing sector. And we've talked a lot about attributes, and we've talked about things like curiosity and attitude to risk. But are there any hardcore skills that you think that you need in order to be innovative in the industry? Gvantsa, does anything come to your mind?
Well, of course, braveness is on the first place. Also, well, I also have been always very, very careful as well. Of course, you are ambitious, you are somehow brave to make the steps, but also somehow you need to be careful as well. Patient.
Patience, a good word.
Yeah, it's a good word. It's an important word because, you know, very often you are very disappointed, and after that you may lose all the strengths and all the motivation. But if you find this patience in your character somehow, this will be very, very helpful. Sometimes anger also helps a lot. When you are, and we are very, in Georgia, we are very often angry.
Boredom, frustration.
Boredom
Anger is important.
The amount of things that I've made just because I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
So what other skills do you think, Searsha?
I mean, I think there's so many different approaches to innovation. It depends what you're innovating. It depends in what industry. I suppose one thing that I found to be universally helpful, and I guess it comes from me having studied psychology, is the ability to test things. So a testing framework, because often when you're making something new or trying something new, you need to understand, well, how was it before? What did I do? And then how did it change? And so being able to isolate different factors and not just understand basic, it doesn't have to be fancy, just basic testing frameworks, a little bit of mathematical analysis if you're doing something like that, or at least the mindset to think like that. You know, what was the baseline? What did I do? How did that change? Is really, really important, because that's what fundamentally informs your decision making. Because innovation is not just change, it's change for the better or for more value, you know. If you just change something, it's not innovation, because it could be worse.
Yeah,
true. Don't know. So do a test and see if it's better.
And
any skills to add there, Arantza?
Yeah, we have said a lot of them. The ones I was thinking. Of course, I think you have to be in this industry. You have to love literature and books. That's my feeling, because I don't think that you can enjoy this industry if you don't like books at all. I mean, if you can go to food industry, you can go to any industry without maybe having a special attachment, but here, no, I think. I think that you have to be humble, too, because you need to know, you need to realize that you don't know everything, and I think it's very important to listen to other people. I have always, it's very interesting because I like a lot to speak, and sometimes my bosses, some of them are sitting, ex-bosses are sitting here in these chairs, told me, especially one I know very well, he told me, you don't listen. But it may seem that I don't listen, but I listen a lot. I listen a lot, more than people think. I think you have to listen a lot. You have to listen a lot because the details are so important, And maybe you just have this bright idea, but then someone in the corner of the room tells you, but be in mind that, and this changes everything. This changes the innovation completely. If you don't, so you need to be listening, very open-minded, humble, to accept that you don't know everything, and that's what I love in the innovation process. Sometimes I am alone thinking things, but I love to do it in collaboration with team, with people that are open-minded, that are imaginative people, that like to imagine, and that's life for me. I need this kind of surroundings, and so being humble and open-minded it's important. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a really delicate balance as well, because you have to have a vision.
Yeah.
And so you have to be like, this is what I want to try and do. This is, and you have to be quite forceful about that sometimes. Like, this is what we're going to try and do. And, people are like, no, it's too big or whatever. You're like, no, we're going to do it. And here's how I think we're going to do it. And then you have to be willing to completely give all of that up when someone gives you a different perspective.
Yeah.
So it can be a really difficult balance of like clarity and being sure of your decision and destination, and then complete flexibility in how you get there. Can sometimes sit a bit uneasily, but that's the dance that you have to do.
Yeah.
And also generosity, I think it's another thing.
Generosity.
Yes. I think that's one of the things, and gratefulness, because we, at the end, we are nothing alone. We depend so much on the others, so much. And if you are not generous to give yourself and to say thank you to the others, I think that there's no worth in doing anything.
Yeah.
Completely.
And Gvantsa, you're about to step into a very big leadership position. How do you take people with you? How do you really motivate the team? And, what if that team's all men? Do you find that difficult? But, what's your approach going to be when you step up in January?
Before IPA, I never worked with men team.
Okay.
Never.
Okay. So this is change for you.
That changed when I became the vice president. So in my country, in the publishing industry, I don't know, in any big project like Jürgen was speaking before us, and when Giorgio was a guest of honor, like 99% of our team was female, and in the associations, the same, we had only female and the publishing house. So for me, it was a change. Well, it's because somehow we think in Georgia that women are much more hardworking, and we understand each other. We understand the importance of maybe to work 24 hours as well. We have this agreement with us, but with male it's quite complicated. But with IPA, of course, we had beautiful and great team in Geneva, and it was something new for me, some change, but of course very, very, very useful for me to have this experience as well. It's important what you said, that to be grateful to the people, because I always try to mention this everywhere, that it is impossible to achieve anything without the support of a lot of beautiful people around you, and you need to notice this, and you need to be grateful to them. Well, also what was my most important principle, it was to be faithful with them and fair. I always say that fairness, how fair I am in my decisions, when I make these decisions, when I'm alone with myself, with people around me. So this is something very, very important when I make any steps, any decisions. And I always realize that without this team, without the support, it's not possible. So always we need to think, to share any success with others as well, because there was someone who helped you to achieve something when you were starting, and it was the same in my case. And well, we are females, we are always somehow very supportive to each other. I will mention Bodur, our previous president, Bodur Al-Qasimi, who also created this wonderful platform of publisher, that she was one of the first persons who noticed and motivated me. So giving the motivation to others, it's something really very important on which we should not forget to do during our work. Because if we, again, want to achieve some changes, we can't do if this ecosystem around us won't change as well. And if we don't motivate them, if we say that this is just alone me achieving something, then it won't work. Not for us, not for others, and not for the industry as well.
That's true. Which moves us on to the industry itself. Publishing has an image of not being innovative, and we've heard it 2 or 3 times this morning that the industry isn't considered innovative. I mean, Searsha, is that your experience as a newcomer? And yeah, what do you think?
I think it's really fascinating. Our CEO wrote a book called Shimmr, Don't Shake, How Publishing Can Embrace AI. And I hadn't read it till it was published. Don't tell him, I told him I read it before. Anyway, so I read it when it was published. The first few chapters were a history of publishing, and then it was a history of AI and how the two intertwined. And actually what really, really struck me was that the history of publishing is so rich in innovation. It's been at the forefront. I mean, the written language, that was an innovation when it started. The whole way through publishing, across the existence of humanity, basically, publishing has been at the forefront of that innovation. And so it's interesting to come in and hear you all say that publishing is you feel it's no longer at the forefront. And that feels a little sad, I guess. I mean, from a Shimmr perspective, we were told when we entered the industry, publishers are really slow, they don't like change, they don't want to try new things. And I think we've just hit our 140th customer in 6 months, which has been unbelievably fast. We were expecting it to be much slower and much more, many more problems, but actually people have really, really embraced change and have gone really fast and are excited by it and have embraced it really quickly. So I'm interested in this perception and where it's come from, because I also think the more you tell yourself something, the more it comes out to be true. That's just a psychological, fact. And so I don't know, maybe if publishing started talking about itself as more innovative, not in a way that's lying, in a way that's genuine, maybe the industry would change a little bit more in the way it sees itself.
Yeah. True. And Gvantsa, I'm going to stick with AI and yourself. And I wanted to ask your view on whether AI is going to innovate the publishing industry, and what challenges do you think we're going to face along the way?
Yeah, that's very important topic for us, and we talk about this a lot in the International Publishers Association with our members. And of course, on the one hand, we realize how important it is for the future of our industry, and we see that more and more publishers are using this tool very actively. But on the other hand, I used the word careful. So in this case, we are also trying to be careful, because we see the challenges. And during one of the previous panels, this topic was discussed, and the copyright issue for us, of course, is very important. And everywhere we go nowadays, in different countries, in different forums, we try to mention this topic, that because we realize that not all the markets and not all the publishers realize that somehow it might be the street as well if we are not careful, because we need to respect the copyright, and AI companies also should respect the copyrights, because we always say that if they are using these beautiful, brilliant works of publishers, writers, a lot of people involved in creating one book, we know how hard work this is. they should respect, if they think that this is useful to train their tools, this beautiful literature, high quality literature, then they should realize that it's important to respect the copyright and this work of so many people who were involved in this, and of our authors, of course, first of all. So we discussed this a lot, and I think that there will be future discussions as well about it. We need to somehow manage to have some rules there as well, how we are managing this in the industry, that on the one hand, we use these innovative tools which will help us in development, but also how to be careful to protect the copyright, which is one of the important pillars for our industry.
And I think you've summed it up quite nicely there in saying that we need collaboration, we need agreements, we need discussions, we need partnerships in order to advance our industry, to be innovative and to seize those opportunities that innovation is presenting to us. We have about half an hour's more material to talk about, but we don't have the time. So we'll continue this conversation over the cocktail. But thank you all for listening, and a big thank you to my panelists for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.